Through a sea of unsolved mysteries, occasionally one can uncover the truths behind some of the most daunting questions we've had as a society for millennia. Unfortunately, it's rare for such mysteries to be solved for certain, but there are some cases such as the ones we'll be discussing today, where the mystical, the unknown, and the strange do have proper explanations, even if only after hundreds of years of inquiry. So today, we'll be taking a look at mysteries that have been solved. Why did the Mayan civilization collapse? For a long time, the Mayans had been a subject of great mystery. How could such an extraordinary civilization, abundant with life and warriors who committed daring feats in battle and were masters of ancient engineering, fall so suddenly? The Mayan civilization is said to have fallen during the 8th or 9th century AD. Descendants live on in Central America. The secrets of their ancestors have been largely lost to time, however. At least they were, but we're slowly uncovering their ancient secrets. Numerous theories have been posed as for the reason behind the tragic collapse, such as a foreign invasion, peasant revolt, and overhunting, with other more obscure theories such as alien invasions and attacks from supernatural beings. In 2005, Jared Diamond proposed a brand new theory, drought. He suggested that a long and painful drought forced the Mayan population to flee their cities as their living conditions became unbearable. This theory has solid ground and archaeological evidence to prove its claim. Researchers from Arizona State University analyzed the data from the area in hopes of when the areas were abandoned. Indeed, they discovered there had been a severe lack of rain, partnered with increased rates of deforestation. The Mayans were burning and chopping down the forest near their cities to create more farmland. Another study was conducted by researchers from Columbia University, which concluded the same results. With the use of population records and the current length of forests and cleared areas, of how a lack of trees in the area would have infected the daily lives of the Mayans, and most importantly, the rainfall. Cleared land absorbs less sunlight, meaning less water evaporates from its surface, making clouds and thus rainfall more rare. Droughts are always disastrous, but even more so during this period in time, when the population was so dense and so many crops failed, leaving hundreds starving through the harvest months, which once upon a time blessed the lands with summer rain. Abandoning these now barren lands was the only logical option for noblemen and peasants alike. The land they settled on stopped being beneficial to anyone. This collapse is particularly interesting because the Mayans have proven their intelligence to us millennia apart. We know that they were an extraordinary civilization who understood great feats of architecture, among other things. They had enough of an understanding of the land they settled on. They built water systems and survived in the face of adversity. Yet they still deforested their own land, causing all their troubles to only grow in intensity. Archaeologists discover the likely source of Stonehenge's giant sarsen stones. Stonehenge has been an enigma for practically its entire existence. Its huge stones have been speculated on and theorized for centuries now, with no clear answer. The breathtaking landmark of Wiltshire, England, might have just been solved. A new theory suggests the stones originated in Westwoods, 15 miles from the current site of Stonehenge, near the town of Marlborough. The great monolith was surely created by the Neolithic humans who resided there. Two main types of stones are present at the site. Blue stones, which are the smallest slabs and seem to have originated from the Presley Hills all the way in southwest Wales. And the larger stones, which stand tall, facing the heavens, are known as megaliths. These megaliths are made of sarsen, which is a type of local sandstone. A single one of these weighs 30 tons and is 7 meters tall. Overall, Stonehenge has 15 of those megaliths. Last year, a missing piece of one of the stones was returned. It had been removed in 1958 by an excavator, who returned it on his 90th birthday. This was quite literally putting a puzzle back into its rightful place. The British Academy funded a team of archaeologists who tested the stone, and all possible areas from Devon, Norfolk, all across the United Kingdom, in hopes of finding data that'll perfectly match what they found in the stone. Upon comparing chemical compositions, they found that Westwards had the best, almost pristine result. David Nash of the University of Brighton, who was also the leader in this study, said, and finally answer a question that archaeologists have been debating for centuries. Of course, countless options still remain without answers. Why did Stonehenge's builders choose the Sarcine from Westwoods, when there were so many other closer areas they could have gotten stones from? Or really, how the Sarcine stones were even transported to the site? Or why the blue stones in Sarcine are from such vastly different locations? Is figuring out the path these ancient builders took when they carried the stones through England as their locations narrowed down the potential route they could have taken. A previous theory suggested the stones were taken from Avebury to Stonehenge. Now this theory can be safely ruled out. Jesus' miracle tears explained. A man by the name of Somal Edmaruku may face imprisonment for exposing that the tears which flowed from the eyes of the statue of Christ in Mumbai's church weren't tears at all, but were actually clogged drainage from unsecured pipes. In a little Catholic church in Mumbai, a statue of Christ started leaking liquid from its eyes almost immediately. The local people believed it to be a sign from the divine, with many calling it a miracle. They thought it was holy water and begun collecting it in large flocks. The crowds gathered before the weeping statue. The church started to announce the site as a pilgrimage place of worship. One of the village residents, George Mendonça, told the news, "I believe that in a way Jesus Christ is trying to make his presence felt to the devotees. We believe it's a miracle, and it depends on the perspective of the individuals." Evidently, numerous people fell for this church-sanctioned belief, without realizing the health risks that came with it. Samar was not so easily fooled, and looked into the situation on a logical level, discovering the water wasn't so holy and was actually quite gross. Drainage water running as a result of poor plumbing. The community was quick to anger, accusing him of blasphemy against the Almighty. He was charged with the offense and sentenced to 3 years in prison for his crimes. Furthermore, people in his town had started to send him threats, which made him fear for his life. He eventually found exile in the icy landscape of Finland. Currently, he is begging European governments to interfere and press Delhi to drop the unfair case, declaring a lack of freedom in India. In an interview with The Guardian in Dublin, he stated, "There is a huge contradiction in the content of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech and the blasphemy law from 1860 under then colonial rule." Furthermore, he pointed out that the weeping statue was a severe health violation and endangered countless lives, as many Catholic believers were consuming the drain water thinking it was blessed and would cure any ailments or illnesses. Has offered to revoke the charges made against him if he apologizes. However, he refuses, asserting he's done nothing wrong. So what do you make of these mysteries that's one step closer to being solved? The underwater world is one that's full of mysteries. Every year scientists and researchers discover thousands of new species, showcasing how little we know about our oceans and what lives in it. Some interesting discoveries have been made by amateur researchers. Using Google Earth allows anyone to pretty much view any location on our planet, and one of the most interesting places to look at is that of our oceans. Those who have spent countless hours on the app have said they've seen some strange things. One of the most recent discoveries is said to be that of a massive pyramid-like structure, with those who have seen it going on to say that it looks thousands of meters in height. The person who found it said they were scrolling through Google Earth and randomly zoomed into one area. After looking around, they found a large structure that appeared to be thousands of meters in height. After zooming out and looking around the area, they said they couldn't find anything similar. They showed the image to a few people and they suggested that he may have found an ancient structure. Interestingly, this isn't the first time that a large pyramid-like structure has been found in the ocean, and it's caused some to say these could be proof of ancient civilizations that were lost to the depths. This isn't far-fetched either. One location that's said to have a pyramid along with a city is that of Lake Fujian. This mystery is located in the Fujian Lake, which can be found in the Yunnan province in China. This discovery was made back in 2006, with many reports being made by divers and water enthusiasts in the area. They claim that the appearance of what seemed to be an underwater building could be seen. Enough reports were made, and on the 13th of June, a team of archaeological divers decided to search the lake. They discovered the remains of a group of huge ancient buildings at the bottom of the lake. The most noted of them being is a vast stone pyramid located in the center. The archaeologists were stumped on how this massive structure got here completely intact. When they looked back through the historical records, they found evidence of an ancient city that was established in the area that is now Lake Fujian. However, this doesn't close the case on the mysterious pyramid. The local legends told that the city sank to the bottom of the lake. The historical records that were kept showed that the once capital was made mostly of clay and wood, but the remains that have been found at the bottom of the lake are made entirely of stone. Surveys of the land have revealed that the complex at the bottom of the Fusion Lake covers 10.8 million square feet. This is far larger than the once capital had ever been. One person said the following about this recent ocean discovery: "I like the look of this one. It's important to remember that 99% of Earth's history has been lost. Many civilizations have come and gone, and we need to look to the oldest pyramids on our planet. Once comparing them to these, we can figure out that these are older." End quote. While another person said this: "It's important to understand that much of human history has been lost. Many civilizations have come and gone that we have no clue about. Millions of years has caused our planet to take on a different look. And it's not out of the realm to suggest that many of these civilizations are now at the bottom of the oceans. I'm sure if we had the opportunity to drain our planet's oceans, we would make some incredible discoveries. So when people say it's unlikely that pyramids are underneath the waves, I find it highly unlikely. Divers and underwater archaeologists have found proof of ancient civilizations. It was only in 1933 that the first sighting of the lost city of Heraklion was made, showing us that this ancient trading city went undiscovered for years." End quote. Skeptics, though, have suggested that what's been seen here is nothing more than a normal underwater anomaly, going on to say that anyone can scroll through Google Earth and find something similar. Amateur researchers, though, have said although the ocean is filled with various anomalies, 99% of them don't look like pyramids. Those who research ocean anomalies have said that pyramids have been found throughout the world. So what's to say that undiscovered ones aren't laying at the bottom of the ocean? Back in 2016, a strange and unexplainable deep-sea anomaly was discovered. Spotted using state-of-the-art satellite information, there appears to be a massive pyramid construction underwater that completely dwarfs the size of the pyramid seen at Giza. It appears that the structure seems to be somewhere around 3.5 to 11 miles across and looks to be resting in a large area of underwater terrain in the Pacific Ocean, the little west of Mexico. Many can even view the massive structure using Google Earth satellite images when looking up the coordinates 12 degrees north and 119 degrees west. The discovery of the object was made by a researcher located out of Argentina by the name of Marcelo Igasta. He claims that the structure could be evidence of the formation of an ancient civilization, long before man was supposedly capable of roaming the planet, and that at a different time in Earth's history could have experienced a change in tide that would have allowed the construction of a monstrosity. However, his theories have not prevented a wide range of theories from forming in the community. Many believe that it could very well be a possibility that the structure isn't that of a large underwater pyramid, but that of a secret alien base inhabiting the ocean floor. Many have often referenced the existence of strange sightings of unidentified submerged objects, or that of UFOs exiting from the ocean below and shooting off into the sky in different maritime accounts. Given the structure's massive size, sudden appearance, and strange artificial shape, this has led many to undoubtedly believe that it appears to be of extraterrestrial origin. Interestingly, other researchers have picked up on the discovery and have agreed that it looks like a large pyramid. Given the large number of reported USOs throughout the area, known as unidentified submerged objects, that have demonstrated similar properties to that of unidentified flying objects, this has led many researchers to believe that the underwater pyramid is actually a base and is still being used in the modern day. So what do you make of these interesting underwater discoveries? And do you think they're pyramids? Privileges and expectations of the elite have become a bit of a modern obsession. Especially in this day and age where the disparity of quality of life between the haves and the have-nots is not so profound, we are utterly fascinated by what the majority is restricted from. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious parties and societies. Surrealist Rothschild Party of 1972. When you are exorbitantly wealthy, there is very little that remains totally private. The world is always watching and speculating. A family like the Rothschilds, who are Jewish financiers, are the perfect example of someone under the microscope of society and culture. They have had financial influence in wars, international monopolies, and high society since 1785. Having made an initial profit off of the French Revolution, Mayor Amel Rothschild sent his 5 sons to the most booming cities in Europe to expand his family's control over its commerce. Operating from London, Naples, Paris, and Vienna, the dynasty grew. Rothschild excluded all of his female descendants from his inheritance, which caused intermarriage between them and their cousins. Much of the criticism of the Rothschild family can be dismissed as blatant anti-Semitism. Some, however, like the evidence that they are war profiteers is more valid. According to the European Institute of International Relations, they stated, they have massive investments in industries such as real estate, oil, and construction. They are rumored to control the world through debt and usury. There are plenty of theories surrounding this untouchable clan, mostly relating to the idea that by designing countries' economies, they are the heads of a new world order. But one particular rumor steeped in intrigue is the infamous 1972 Rothschild Ball. The gala was thrown by Guy de Rothschild and his spouse Marie-Helene de Rothschild. The couple were uninterested in moderation, and there is no more obvious example than the Château de Ferrières, which became the location of many soirees. Brigitte Bardot, Yves Saint Laurent, and Grace Kelly, among other famous attendees, frequented this venue. The theme for this particular ball, surrealism, and the hosts as well as the guests did not disappoint. According to an article on All Things Interesting by Marko Magaritov, invitations were written backwards so that they had to be read in a mirror. As the sun began to set and guests arrived, the floodlights made the chateau appear as if it was on fire. Servants inside meanwhile were dressed as cats and stationed along the main staircase. The tables were littered with plastic baby dolls and taxidermy tortoises. Marie-Helene for her part wore a giant stag's head adorned with real diamonds. Actress Audrey Hepburn wore a birdcage. Perfumer Hélène Rocquois wore a gramophone. Some of the wildest conspiracy theories include that the decal was meant to represent human sacrifice, that Freemason and occult symbols were hidden throughout the night, and that the ball itself was a metaphor for the family's intention of world domination through satanic rituals. Skulls and Bones. The Skulls and Bones Society is likely the blueprint for many popular spoofs of secret societies. Its initiates are known as Bonesmen, and they are recruited or tapped near the end of their junior year at Yale. Among its alumni are powerful figures such as Steve Mnuchin, William Taft, John Kerry, and both George Bushes. This club is the oldest of its kind at Yale, which is the 3rd oldest university in the United States. As if that didn't make it exclusive enough, only 15 members are chosen per year. The club's symbol is, fittingly, a skull and crossbones hovering above the number 332, potentially referring to the year 332 BCE, in which Athens went from a democracy to a plutocracy due in part to the passing of the public speaker Demosthenes. This only furthers the image of the group being elitist and implies that they believe that power should only lie in the hands of the wealthy and privileged, including particularly ridiculous hazing rituals. Most recently, the society has been in the news because descendants of Geronimo, the famous Apache leader, failed to retrieve the skull of the medicine man himself. The skull is thought to be in the bonesman's possession, at the headquarters which they call the tomb. The tomb, which is used for meetings and rituals, has no windows and gives off an air of Gothic haughtiness. In addition, the Skull and Bones Society also owns a small island that is meant to serve as a location for retreats, although it is in very poor condition due to misuse and neglect. According to Time magazine, whose founder, Henry Luce, is incidentally a bonesman himself, conspiracy theories about the Skull and Bones Society are almost as old as the society itself. The group has been blamed for everything from the creation of the nuclear explosive device to the Kennedy assassination. Opus Dei. It is suspected that Opus Dei is a radical Catholic sect, and many of its members seek to influence society and have pull at the top of the hierarchy. They are infamous for their secrets and expectations of extreme devoutness, and while the majority of its members are like laymen, it is still exclusive. In fact, there are only 500 members in the UK. Among its worldwide body are several high-ranking former members of General Franco's Spain. Ruth Kelly, a former member of Parliament. The cult-like organization even has ties to highly publicized people all around the world. The Guardian reports Robert Hansen, the FBI agent who sold secrets to the Russians, had links with the movement. Former FBI Director Louis Freer is also reputed to be a member, And there is also speculation that several justices in the U.S. Supreme being admitted into the sect is a 5-year process, and while the depictions of the group in Dan Brown's best-selling book, The Da Vinci Code, are not entirely accurate, there is also a support group known as Oprah's Day Awareness Network to help former members cut ties. Some former members warn about psychological manipulation and tactics to control its body of membership to stop people from leaving. Wealthy supporters fund this group, and it is so well sponsored that many believe it gives Oprah's Day a disproportionate amount of influence. The headquarters are worth $50 million alone. Those of the highest social strata, by definition, restrict the general population from their ways of life. But what we can piece together will hold our interest as we indulge in the escapist fantasy of the lifestyles of the rich and famous. While some of these conspiracies could be rooted in truth, it's interesting to see how far our imaginations can run when filling in the blanks. What do you make of these mysterious parties and societies? In all the world's greatest mysteries, few are more exciting than the ones found in books. Hundreds of these books have mystified even the smartest researchers and scientists for decades with their hidden secrets. With over 2.2 million new books being published every year, only a select few are intriguing enough to stand the test of time. So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious books and see if we can unlock the mystery. Treasures hidden within their pages. The Book of Soyga. In the early 16th century, an unknown author wrote a written work about demonology. This treatise, entirely written in Latin, would eventually be known as the Mysterious Book of Soyga, otherwise known as Alderia. No one would have known anything about the book if it wasn't for an Englishman named John Dee. He was an accomplished mathematician, philosopher, and astronomer, who also worked alongside the Queen of England Elizabeth I. Once he got a hold on the book nearly half a millennium ago, he dedicated his entire life to unlock its mysteries. The first part of the book was easy for Dee, who could easily read Latin. Within it, he discovered passages about the wildest spells, magical formulas and conjurations, and structures involving angels and demons. 36 pages of some cryptic tables containing Latin letters. He knew that it must have been a code, potentially with a message. With that realization, he was determined to uncover it, no matter how far his methods could reach. He consulted his close friend named Edward Kelly, who was an occultist and a spirit medium. Heavily involved in the supernatural and mystical, he immediately set to work with Dee. Instead of trying to spend hours closely interpreting the Latin characters, they instead summoned an archangel, or one of the highest-ranked angels. As the angel named Uriel was present, the two friends asked him about the meaning of the final part of the book. Usually known as the Angel of Wisdom, Uriel spoke his words through Kelly's mouth. Yet his answer only brought forth more questions, as well as a haunting omen. He said that the book came forth as soon as Adam entered the Garden of Eden, and that it could only be understood by Archangel Michael, the leader of the army of God against forces of evil. Even more chilling was Uriel's statement that the Book of Sawyer was cursed. If one were to uncover the meaning behind the tables and their codes, they would surely pass away 2.5 years later. As time passed with the fate lingering in the air, Dee was never able to find out the meaning. The book even disappeared in the late 1610s, thought to be destroyed or forever lost. It wasn't until 1994 when a copy of the book was discovered in the British Library in London among a heap of other ancient tomes. For 100 years after Dee's passing, the book had finally resurfaced. It was found by none other than an American historian and professor named Deborah Harkness, who studied John Dee and wrote her PhD thesis on his life's work. As it turns out, there was a second copy in the Bodleian Library at Oxford. Upon its momentous discovery, many occult fans and cryptographers rushed back to figure out the final part. After many years of deciphering, one man by the name of Jim Reeds found the answer in 2006. As both a historian and cryptographer, he created an algorithm for understanding the tables, which revealed lists of magical incantations, astrological words, and even more angel and demon names. Did he pass away in 2.5 years? As a matter of fact, he is still alive today, 15 years later. But whether the curse remains true, we will never know. Reed had never managed to interpret the tables, as the curse says its victim must do. Perhaps within the tables, A secret and mysterious message still lays out there. Codex Seraphinianus, when it comes to mysterious books, you might immediately picture the most ancient texts possible. However, one book of intrigue was written and illustrated in the 1970s by a man named Luigi Serafini, who was an Italian artist, architect, and industrial designer. By the title of Codex Seraphinianus, this 360-page book is an encyclopedia about a completely imaginary world filled with the strangest images and text in a mysterious and unknown language, almost like a book from another reality depicting an alien world unlike our own. It contains hundreds of hand-drawn illustrations featuring architecture, unique plants and flowers, food, fashion, and many more unusual things. Several of the items closely and a plant that grows to the shape of a chair. Others feature many machines with unrecognizable purposes, maps, human faces, and for completely abstract. What may seem even more bizarre is the writing system. Although it resembles the structure on modern Western writing systems, the letters almost are written like ropes or threads, as if they are strings that can be tied with loops and knots. It almost looks like Sinhala script, or the writing of the Sinhalese people. Yet the mysterious meaning behind the text and what it means could not be any more different. According to the writer at a talk with the Oxford University Society of Bibliophiles in 2009, he said that the book's text had absolutely no meaning and was a semic. He revealed his purpose for creating such a book was to inspire a sense of awe and surrealness that children first feel when they come across books that they are not yet able to understand. Even if that might be true or not, the book's in-depth structure continues to be a source of wonder for thousands of people. In fact, Luigi Serafini is still alive today. From the publication of the Codex up till now, he had been very happy to see a community grow from the book, and while the apparent meaning of the book is still debated, it has brought a bit of mystery and fun back into many people's lives. The Picatrix. Even though many mysterious books have originated from the West, just as many magical books have come from the East. This was such with a book called the Picatrix, which is a 10th century 400-page book all about magic and astrology. The original Arabic translation of the title is The Goal of the Wise, or The Aim of the Sage. The supposed author was named Balama al-Majridi, who was an Arab Muslim astronomer, chemist, mathematician, economist, and scholar in Islamic Spain. When he was not excelling in multiple disciplines, he spent time compiling together law from earlier texts. Together in total, he claimed to have used the information from over 200 books over a 6-year period. Although he wrote the original text in Arabic, it was translated into Spanish by the court of Alfonso X of Castile in the 13th century and then later into Latin. Inside the pages, many astrological magic, potions, spells, philosophical passages, and even electoral rules are contained. Talismans, amulets, and images are used to emphasize many of the points made. And even though the book is heavy on the magic, it stored many useful elements that would influence a great deal of culture. Even after all this time, the book still influences a direct part of what remains dominant in popular culture today. There's a part that emphasizes actualizing the will through hidden or occult forces as a major theme, otherwise recognized today as the art of manifestation. Whatever you desire shall come about. Whatever he seeks from the Lord with whom he interacts, he will obtain. They requested their desires and fulfilled. Those phrases from various translations come directly from the text and repeatedly emphasize the need for the user to have faith and trust the process. But everything in this book isn't always for the good. While early spells are for rather innocent purposes, like making two people fall in love with each other, later in the book it shows how to destroy an enemy. Everything in the book is also underscored by the author repeatedly swearing the reader to secrecy. Could these magic spells and practices be more powerful than we might realize? Regardless of whether you adamantly believe in magic, science, or both, the Picatrix has made a significant impact on culture throughout the Renaissance era. Perhaps it might make an even greater impact in the future. For now, it's just an unexplained mystery. But what do you make of these mysterious books? In recent years, Mars has been featured a lot in the news, and this is because space agencies are gearing up to send missions there. NASA and other companies like SpaceX have been vocal about how they plan to send humans there within the next few decades, with the end goal having various space shuttles carrying humans there daily. It sounds far-fetched, but it's something that researchers have said can happen. Although it can happen though, it comes with various obstacles. Mainly cost. Setting up something like this will easily go into the billions. To put it into perspective to show you how expensive something like this would be, NASA's Curiosity rover cost them over $2.5 billion. So terraforming Mars and ensuring that it would be habitable for humans would cost considerably more. Some researchers have suggested that terraforming Mars alone would cost in the region of $100 billion to $200 billion. And then from there on it would cost a further few $100 million in missions and supplies. NASA have announced they've begun work on a Moon to Mars mission that plans on sending humans back to the Moon in 2024, and then from there on to the Martian surface with an expected colonization located in 2033. Jim Bridenstine, the current administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, announced on the 15th of July in 2019 that the new Artemis project, the project featuring the space agency's return to the Moon missions, would definitely include plans on human Martian endeavors. Bridenstine elaborated on the plans with the following statement targeted towards the new Artemis mission during his briefing on the project. We are working right now on facts to put together a comprehensive plan on how we will conduct a Mars mission using the technologies that we will be proving at the Moon. There's two sides when it comes to these sorts of ambitious ideas. One side insists that humans need to venture into the stars in order to keep our civilization going. And there's others who say that it's a waste of time, and that instead of spending hundreds of billions of dollars on rovers and spaceships, we could be putting that money towards helping our planet. One scientist said that if we have the power and money to build sophisticated spaceships, have the ability to terraform a planet so it's more like Earth, why don't we terraform Earth back into Earth and start making it more livable for future generations? Regardless, Mars is still on the radar for many upcoming missions. Interestingly though, Mars is also the location of some strange anomalies. Although scientists have said that amateur researchers are wrong and that they have too much time on their hands. Eagle-eyed viewers have said that in recent years they've made some interesting discoveries. One of the most recent ones to be published on Mars Groups is that of this one. It shows what's been described as tracks, and those that have seen them have said that something large must have created them. Various different ideas have been presented in order to explain what these strange markings could be. One person said the following about the photographs. This is one of the more interesting ones that's been captured on Mars. Many people within the UFO community are not aware of this, and it's a shame because it's one of the most interesting ones we have from Mars. It shows what appears to be tracks going on for miles. When I first saw these, they stood out to me because they didn't look natural. The pattern looked strange, and I'm not sure this could have occurred naturally. End quote. Something to note though is that this isn't the first time that strange tracks have been found on the Red Planet. The National UFO Center found a similar image which again shows large tracks. They used a measurement tool and calculated that the tracks go on for around 86 miles. With another UFO researcher saying the following, what I find amazing is how long these tracks go on for. They don't belong to the rovers as they're far too big. One of the leading theories is that they could have been put there by an ancient civilization, or this could be remnants of one. End quote. Those who believe that Mars was once inhabited in the past have said that NASA have failed to comment on the images, but skeptics have said the reason NASA doesn't reply is because there's so many of these supposed anomalies, and it would take them forever to reply to each individual person. Skeptics have said that NASA have replied in the past, and that people don't believe them when they present their answers. One of the answers they've presented in the past to explain away these anomalies is that of pareidolia, but others have said how could this be pareidolia? You can clearly see large prints in the moss and soil that go on for miles, and that you only get this look when something has gone through the area. It's not often you get symmetrical patterns like this in the wild, or have them go on for miles like this. And this is one of the reasons why some have put forward their own theories. Other eagle-eyed viewers that have spent hours looking through old Mars photographs have said they found what looks like animals. One that got featured on many websites was that of the Mars crab. This photograph was first discovered back in 2015, and those that saw it said it reminded them of the facehuggers from the Alien franchise. Some who studied the images said you can make out 8 legs. Or many argued about its size, with guesses ranging from a few feet to the size of a car. Although NASA have said there's nothing strange about this photograph, and what people are seeing is a case of pareidolia, where cracks in rocks makes it appear like there's a creature there. Furvis saying that there's never been a photograph that they haven't been able to explain, and that there isn't any life on the red planet. So what do you make of these kinds of photographs? Do you think they show proof of tracks? Or that of an ancient civilization that once called this place home? Or do you think people are looking too deep into this and that these are just natural formations? In 2017, a series of strange photographs were shared online. They showed what looked like large structures on the moon's surface. Those who went on to forever investigate the claims said that 6 towers had been discovered on the moon, and after these photographs were shared online, people started to give their opinions on what they thought they were. The images were taken from Google Moon, which is collected by NASA satellites orbiting the moon and taking images of the lunar surface, appear to show what people say are large-looking structures. One commenter said they'd been placed there and that they definitely weren't natural. Users then started to do their own research, and it turned out that more of these large structures were found. One person used a measuring tool and said the structures measured in at 3.7 kilometers or 2.2 miles in height. So whatever these things are, they're not small. This then caused some to question whether NASA had picked up on these before, with one person saying the following: "These structures are over 2 miles in height. I fail to believe that NASA or other space agencies haven't picked up on them yet. Why have they kept quiet about these giant things coming out of the moon's surface? They literally look like towers." End quote. However, some spoke out about these discoveries and said that Google Moon isn't the most reliable tool. Others, though, carried on from this and said that similar-looking structures have been found on the moon's surface. Believers, though, have said that saying these structures are glitches is just lazy and is used as a way to avoid answering and researching further what these things are. With another person saying the following: "I'm starting to see a theme here when it comes to these anomalies. Whenever one is found, you never hear the space agency reply with open arms. They immediately debunk it. And I find that interesting because according to them, they've only seen these discoveries when people have shown them it. So how can you debunk something that you've only just seen? It seems like that happens with everything that's slightly mysterious these days. Instead of being interested in wanting to investigate further, all these agencies say that is a glitch or a camera anomaly. At this point, it feels pointless to even show them this stuff because you know what answer they'll give." End quote. Another thing that people are talking about again is that of the strange object that was seen flying through our solar system. This object went by the name of Oumuamua. A.V. Lope, who is the chair of Harvard's Department of Astronomy, claims that he thinks he found proof of extraterrestrials. And this comes in the form of some garbage. He has an upcoming book titled Extraterrestrial: The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. And in it, he details that mysterious objects that made its way into our solar system may be proof of extraterrestrials. It's not very often that you get high-up officials talk about this subject. However, this year alone, many government officials have been quite vocal about the UFO phenomena and have stated in recent years that unidentified crafts have been detected in our skies, that these objects need to be taken more seriously. The object the professor is talking about immediately displayed some strange signs. In this course, scientists and researchers from around the world to speculate what it was. The object was given the name of Oumuamua, but the professor has given some examples of why this object might not be a space rock and that it could actually be a piece of alien technology. On the 19th of October 2017, we were visited by something that scientists couldn't initially explain. It was called Oumuamua, and astronomers first noticed this object traveling through our solar system. The object in question had come from another solar system, and people quickly started to speculate what the object was. It could be seen traveling around the sun and then shooting away again. However, after this, it was not to return. Astronomers were able to record data on the object for a short period of time, with them saying that the mysterious object had been in our solar system for over a century. The reason Oumuamua wasn't spotted until 2017 is because it wasn't close enough to reflect enough light for astronomers to pick it up. Even when it did get close, it was moving very fast, and meant astronomers had very little time to observe it. Once the strange object flew around the sun, it was going further away, meaning it was getting fainter and fainter. The astronomers' last observation from Hubble were on the 2nd of January 2018. On the 3rd of May, It was then seen outside of Jupiter's orbit. Interestingly, though, some have said there's not just one Oumuamua. There's tools that can be used to help us view the wonders of the universe. And one of the most popular ones is that of Google Sky. Google decided they wanted somewhere where people could explore the far reaches of the universe. Using Google Sky, you can see many famous celestial bodies, and over the years it's provided us with some breathtaking views. However, some who've used this software have said they found some interesting things. This Google Sky discovery had some saying that it looked very similar to a Oumuamua, which gained popularity as being the first known interstellar objects that was detected traveling through our solar system. This recent photograph has caused some to suggest whether this and Oumuamua are the same thing, suggesting that these mysterious interstellar objects are scattered throughout our solar system. This particular one was discovered close to the Orion constellation. The person who discovered the object said they were messing around with Google Sky and zoomed in really quickly on Orion. They took a screenshot of the object as they thought it looked interesting and they shut it down. They then showed a few people and it was them who made the connection between the two objects. One of the first things you'll notice is that they're very similar in appearance. And interestingly, this isn't the only one that's been discovered that has a similar appearance to a Oumuamua. So what do you make of these interesting space discoveries? What do you think these strange structures on the moon are? And do you think this is another Oumuamua-like object? Space no longer seems unreachable for humans. Walking on the moon is arguably one of our most impressive things. Various researchers have said that in order to carry on, we need to look to the stars and start exploring other planets. Since venturing into space, thousands of images have been taken, some of which show important details of planets, moons and asteroids, and others which are blank. However, within this vast collection are some that have stood out, and this is because those that have looked at them have struggled to explain what they're looking at. One such photograph was shared back in 2015, but not many people know about it. One of the first places to feature the images were various UFO websites, stating that it possibly showed a dish-shaped UFO hovering above the moon's surface. According to UFO researchers, they say the moon is of particular interest to UFOs, and have even gone as far as saying that these UFOs use the far side of the moon. This is the side that doesn't face the Earth, and they do this in order not to be seen by us. NASA and other officials have said these are just theories, and that there's never been any proof to suggest that UFOs are on the moon. But believers use photographs like this to suggest that there's more happening on the moon than what we're being told about. Although many would dispel the notion that intelligent alien life exists elsewhere in our galaxy, there are a number of theorists that not only believe that alien life is here, but that such extraterrestrials have already established vast research bases on our planet for the sole purpose of studying the human race like a pack of lab mice. Many people falsely believe that sightings of UFOs have only spawned in the modern era due to science fiction movies and other similar popular cultural references in the mainstream. This is far from the truth, as ancient accounts of alien activity and unidentified flying objects exist all throughout history. As of today, not much information can be gathered about this strange object seen hovering above the moon's surface. One person at the time suggested that it's actually an optical illusion, and from our perspective it looks like this object is hovering when it isn't. But others debunked this idea and said you can clearly see that something is there and it's not making contact with the moon. Even astronauts themselves have come forward and told stories of strange objects that they've seen in space. One of the most influential American heroes of the 1950s, as well as the key figure in helping to locate a number of nuclear sites all around the world, was that of Major Gordon Cooper. Gordon Cooper has been a part of a number of top-secret missions in space, with several evolving around the use of highly advanced technologies. During one of his many space missions, he claimed to have come into contact with an extraterrestrial craft. During Gordon Cooper's space mission that included a solo journey with a planned twin-stew orbit trip around the Earth, he claimed to have seen a glowing object that appeared to be bright green slowly approaching his spacecraft, and this happened as he viewed it through the porthole. Additionally, the approach of the object was also picked up by the Makia tracking station, which can be found in the town of Makia in Australia, confirming Cooper's encounter. This would lead to the astronaut eventually agreeing to take on a 2-day mission, in which he would work to analyze footage and evidence of extraterrestrial visitation of the planet, that would eventually lead him to giving a speech at the United Nations to discuss his findings. During his speech, he described later coming across evidence of extraterrestrial crafts, gathered evidence of enormous aircrafts, as well as stating the following. I saw with my own eyes a defined air of ground being consumed by flames, with 4 indentations left by flying objects which had descended in the middle of a field. Beings had left the craft. There were other traces to prove this. They seemed to have studied topography. They had collected soil samples, and eventually they returned to where they'd come from, disappearing at enormous speed. It's estimated that thousands of unidentified flying objects are reported every year, and although it's suspected that a large majority of these can be easily explained, whether that's as natural phenomena, wildlife such as birds, the military, weather balloons or drones, some have said that a few of these UFO reports are hard to explain. But what happens when these strange crafts are photographed on things like the moon and other planets? The list of possible explanations suddenly becomes shorter. Regardless, space agencies have said they've never seen a photograph, which has caused them to label it as an unidentified flying object. One interesting story comes from Nikola Tesla, and this happened when he was working with radio equipment. Though its influence in history has been astounding, the small broadcast device we know as the radio has not been around for very long. In fact, its inventor, Nikola Tesla, did not first conceive of the device until 1885. Despite the young age of the device, it was made apparent that Mr. Tesla was far ahead of his own time when coming up with its invention, being the only inventor of his time to be made aware of the electromagnetic spectrum, and the ability to tap into its power and uses. Oddly enough, Tesla wrote extensively in his notes that when he made the first radio capable of receiving and broadcasting a signal, as soon as he turned on the device, he could already hear another person's voice on the other side. He would later go on to claim that people transmitting him a signal were those of beings living on the surface of Mars, and that they were attempting to make first contact with him. This was only made more eerie as Nikola Tesla wrote that this voice was that of a man calling out his name, saying Tesla 123 over and over again, before the signal cut out entirely. Many researchers speculate that this signal could have been nothing more than background radiation misinterpreted, and could have been caused by a solar wind of the sun. However, many believe that perhaps something far more creepy could have been going on in the background. No explanation for this strange occurrence has been provided, and still many more speculate that perhaps Nikola Tesla made contact with something not quite human, ranging from extraterrestrials to time travelers. Various theories have been put forward on trying to discover the route of Nikola Tesla's first received broadcasts. So what do you make of this interesting photograph? Back in 2015, NASA uploaded around 13,000 Apollo photographs online, but it didn't take long for amateur researchers to find some interesting anomalies in these photographs. One photograph that got shared on various websites was this one that was taken back in 1972. The photo in question was taken during Apollo 17 and shows the moon's surface nearby hills in the backdrop of space. However, when online users zoomed in to one section of the photograph, they discovered some strange-looking lights. Amateur researchers who first saw these said the lights in question were clearly in the shape of a triangle, and since being shared, various UFO researchers came out and suggested that NASA was being watched while on the moon. The lights can be seen in the top right-hand corner of the photograph, and when you zoom in, you can see that the lights were blue in color, and in the shape of a triangle. UFO researchers have long said that strange triangle-shaped crafts had been witnessed by humans for decades. However, amateur researchers that looked into the phenomena have said this has been going on for a long time, saying that various photographs exist that show these strange triangle-shaped crafts. 99% of the photographs shared those show these objects on Earth, so how do you explain this object hovering above the moon? One believer said the following: UFO researchers have done some incredible work in recent years, and this is one of the gems that's been discovered in some of the older NASA photographs that's been shared. There's no denying that this object is clearly triangular in shape. Whatever this thing is, it matches the very same objects that's seen on our planet. End quote. Other researchers who have spent countless hours looking at old NASA photographs have said this is some of the best proof we have of these crafts on the moon, and go on to say that usually NASA edits out these objects in their images. But in this case, they likely forgot. This is one of the reasons why UFO researchers say the International Space Station is one of the best places to see UFOs. because it's really hard for NASA to edit out these crafts that come into the camera's view. So what they do is shut off the live cams claiming that the signal got dropped. Skeptics, though, don't buy into the idea that UFOs can be seen above the moon and close to the International Space Station. Instead, they say the majority of these lights can be easily explained and that what people are seeing is things like lens flares and other debris that make their way in front of their cameras. Even NASA themselves have said these objects that people call UFOs are just space debris. And when they get up close to the cameras, they can take on the appearance of a UFO. Interestingly, though, black triangles aren't anything new. Black triangle UFOs are a type of craft that have been seen in our sky for years now. And after years of research, the most likely answer is that these crafts belong to the military. However, even though some believe that it's our military that owns these crafts, there's still many unanswered questions. For example, how they're able to travel the speeds they do, how they're able to use camouflage tech, and how they can hover motionless without making a sound. It's these questions that have led some to say that these crafts don't belong to us. After all, we currently don't have any aircraft that's able to match what these crafts do. These black triangles are hundreds of years more advanced than our current egg. So where did these things come from? And how are they able to achieve what they do? At this moment in time, no military has come forward to claim that it's them who's behind these sightings. But most UFO researchers think these black triangles are part of a secret program. And this is their latest creation. However, sightings and encounters have gone against this, saying that these crafts have been observed in our skies for decades. In fact, there's even photographs of these triangles that were taken above Italy in 1945. So that means these black triangles are over 80 years old. How did we have this type of tech during a time when battles were taking place using basic airplanes? As mentioned, it's one of the reasons that UFO researchers believe these things don't belong to us. In fact, even military officials would come forward and detail their encounter with them, demanding an answer for what they encountered in the sky. Many of these eyewitnesses would say these triangle objects seem interested in their crafts. Then, when they tried to get closer, they suddenly vanished, easily being much faster than the planes during those times. Interestingly, this led to these objects being given the name of Foo Fighters. Strange technological advances were witnessed by United States airmen that claimed to have witnessed countless encounters with unidentified flying objects, described as cigar-shaped rocket-like crafts and dark triangles on the late November evening back in 1944. The 415th Night Fighter Squadron reported a number of peculiar lights, and this happened along the Rhine Valley Ridge. As the Night Fighter Squadron turned to attack the craft, the lights faded and appeared to have disappeared from the region entirely. This was one of a countless number of military reports that described similar-looking, unidentified flying objects, with one of the strangers' reports being the witness account of Lieutenant Samuel A. Cransley. According to Cransley's report, as he was flying, he noticed a large wingless cigar-shaped object with a reddish glow, floating alongside him just a few yards away, seemingly attached by an invisible wire, which maintained a perfect distance and speed. Cransley went into invasive maneuvers and rolled the plane while dropping down to get away from the craft, only to witness the cigar-shaped object follow its maneuvers perfectly and maintain its position relative to its aeroplane. After several minutes of additional maneuvers, Cransley said the object suddenly faded in color and shot off at an incredible speed. So it seems that these strange triangle-shaped crafts aren't anything new and have been sighted by people for at least the last 70 years. So what do you make of the reports that UFOs have been seen hovering above the moon? Do you think these objects are UFOs? Or just things like space debris that's being misidentified? Since the early 1990s, there have been stories about black-eyed children. These entities are said to have a dark presence, and whenever someone encounters them, they feel uneasy. Those who have come forward and reported their encounters have been left scared and wanting answers. One of the problems, though, is that many eyewitnesses can't prepare for these encounters. What usually happens is one of the entities will knock on the door and take the person on the other side by surprise. The encounter is rushed and the person is usually left terrified by the experience. People that have experienced black-eyed children have said they've never encountered these individuals before, which has led paranormal researchers to say that the encounters seem random and not planned. This story was sent to me a while back and revolves around a woman who had a creepy encounter. The woman said the following: "My boyfriend came over to stay on this particular night and we decided to go for a walk. Where I live is a beautiful place and I genuinely feel very safe where I am. After eating dinner, we decided to head out for our walk. Everything was fine, but around 40 minutes in we noticed something strange. After being midway through our walk, my boyfriend picked up on the fact that we were being followed by a child. I looked back and I saw the little girl. However, I couldn't really make out what she looked like because it was dark. My boyfriend asked me whether we should go over and see if they're okay, but I thought she may have been with her family. 10 minutes after this encounter, I looked behind us and the little girl was gone, but things only got more strange. A few minutes we came to a dark crossroad and the little girl started toward us. Not only did this scare us, but we wondered how she managed to get in front. We decided to walk towards the little girl, but both of us were nervous. We thought that she may have been lost, and thought it would be best to go and ask if she was lost and needed assistance. As soon as we were around 15 feet from this girl, we both looked at each other. This girl's eyes were completely blank, and not only that, but her clothing looked really old. She said in a calm voice, "I need you to come with me." She pointed at me and during the whole encounter blanked my boyfriend. I said no and quickly walked off. While doing so, she just stood there and stared at us. It's the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me, and I have no answers for what we encountered that night. End quote. Another guy reported his strange encounter. He said the following: "While going for a jog, I encountered two beings. I don't want to call them children because something wasn't right. I like to think of myself as a brave kind of guy, but this is something that really got to me. In fact, it stayed with me to this day. While jogging, I see these two figures in the distance. It was dark at this point, but it wasn't uncommon to see people, as my jogging route is near quite a busy area. Occasionally, you would see people walking their dogs or couples walking hand in hand. However, these people didn't seem like any of those. Where I jog, there are two paths you can take, and I usually take the right path. But on this particular night, these two beings were standing in the middle of the right path. I had to go this way as it then loops me around to where I started. However, as I approached them, something seemed off. The two beings both had their heads down. One was a girl and the other was a boy. I took my headphones out and started to get worried. I thought that perhaps they were lost or needed help. As I approached, though, I could see the boy kept looking up and then back down really quickly, almost as if to see how close I was getting. This immediately put me on edge as it came across as weird. I asked them if they needed help, and this was when I was taken back. Both of them had dark black eyes. I felt like I was being drawn into them. They asked me if I could give them a ride home. I explained that they could see me running down the path and that I didn't have my car close by. I asked where they were from and they said that's not important. They asked me if I'd let them in my house to use the telephone. At this point, I really started to panic and pretended I had a phone call. I then made a quick getaway. The reason I don't like to call them children is because something was off. These beings talked in a strange way. They sounded too intelligent for their age. They also used old words that don't get used nowadays. You may think it's strange that I ran off, but these beings weren't normal. They did not act scared, but were actually rather intimidating. The way they stared at me with their black eyes just freaked me out. I also got a bad feeling inside when I was around them. End quote. This last story features a man who was alone with his daughter. He claims that he was sleeping in his daughter's bedroom, but could hear a knocking sound outside of the house. He thought it may have been one of the neighbor's cats, and so tried to fall back asleep. But this odd noise continued. The man looked around his house and could see two figures standing outside the window. He then saw them walk around and knock on the front door. Both were boys aged between 9 and 12 years old. The man also noticed that they gave off a moldy odor. The boys asked the man, "May we use your telegraph?" He quickly realized that something wasn't right, and as they stepped into the light, he noticed that they had jet black eyes. He quickly shut the door and ran up to his daughter's bedroom. The man held his daughter tight as the strange individuals continued to knock on the door throughout the night. So what do you make of these strange black-eyed children stories? Do you think they're based on fact, or just urban legends? Also, What would you do if these black-eyed children knocked on your door? Most stories fascinate many of us. All across the world are rumors of strange hauntings and unexplainable phenomena that have occurred in and around train stations. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 allegedly haunted trains and train stations. Hosts of Waterfront Station. Waterfront Station is considered one of the most haunted buildings in downtown Vancouver. It was originally built in 1915 by the Canadian Pacific Railway as the final stop for their transcontinental trains that came from Toronto and Montreal. It is a grandiose terminal that was built to depict train travel during that era, romantic and glamorous with a certain level of sophistication associated with it. It is currently still used as a transportation hub where passengers can connect to multiple transport systems such as the Skitran, West Coast Express train, Seabus, city buses, and the Helijet helicopter services. There used to be full-time residences and housing for travelers located in the East Wing, but that now has transformed into a restaurant. Upper floors have been turned into business offices, although some remain empty and are just used for storage. Ghosts and poltergeists have been seen many times by the security guards who patrol at night. One guard claims he saw the ghost of a 1920s flapper girl wearing a red dress who was dancing to jazz music alone in the corridor of the west end of the building. As he approached her, the music suddenly stopped and she disappeared. Another guard was walking through the rooms in the upper floor of the East Wing when he experienced a poltergeist. He was in a room that was used as storage for desks. As he walked through, the desks silently moved behind him and blocked the door. When he turned around and saw the desks, he jumped over them and ran from the room frightened. In the northwest corner of the station, a security guard wandered through a dark and empty room with his flashlight when all of a sudden he came face to face with the ghost of an old woman. Glowing white, the miserable-looking woman reached her hand out to the guard. There have even been incidents of hauntings. One guard was in the kitchen when he was abruptly met by a different old woman. She tried to aggressively come towards him, but he fled. He later started to dream of her every night and would see her everywhere in windows and mirrors. He was suddenly overcome with the urge to paint her despite not being an artist. He left the painting in the kitchen and was never bothered by her again. Later on, management tried to move the painting, but then the mover began having dreams of her as well, until management agreed to return the picture. Within the building, the night guards often hear the sound of footsteps walking through the station despite there being no one there. Outside of the station on the tracks on the north end, they have also seen the ghost of a rail worker during rainy nights. They believe it is the spirit of Hub Clark, a brakeman who slipped on wet tracks in 1928 as he was repairing the rails and was subsequently knocked unconscious. The passenger train came along and he passed away due to horrific injuries. People claim to see Clark still wandering through the tracks, headless with a lantern in his hand while he searches for his head. London's haunted underground. London is an incredibly old city with a rich history and countless numbers of ghost sightings. The underground especially is a frequent hotspot for the paranormal, so much so that they even made haunted tube maps of all the spooky sightings. Covent Garden Station has been haunted for over a century. Since it first opened, people have been seeing a tall figure wearing a top hat, gloves, and her coat. It is believed to be the deceased William Terrace, an actor who was attacked and lost his life in 1897, relatively nearby the station. This ghost-like figure is apparently so unnerving that multiple staff of the London Underground have requested transfers to avoid him. Bethnal Green Station was used as a shelter during the World War II air raids. In 1943, there was an alarm test drill which many thought was a real attack. They swarmed the station and 173 people ended up passing away from the stampede. Most of the deceased were women and children. It is said that screams can be heard at the station despite there being no one around. Supernatural occurrences have been seen near the ground of Elephant and Castle Station. While waiting on empty platforms, commuters have heard running footsteps and odd tapping sounds, as well as seeing doors flung open and slammed shut. There have been many reports of a young girl boarding the Bakerloo line, but never seen exiting. The drivers at this station have even claimed to see the girl board their train themselves, further adding to the myth of this mystery ghost. Aldgate Station sits on top of what used to be a burial pit for those who passed away of the plague. This burial site is the cause of many ghost sightings within the station. It even has its own ghost logbook to keep track of them. The most well-known ghost sighting is that of an elderly woman seen helping an injured man. A worker apparently fell onto the live electrical rail from a considerable height and was injured. Thankfully, he survived, but witnesses claimed that they saw a ghost-like figure stroking him while he laid there. She was quickly dubbed as the elderly angel of Aldgate, and is quite a famous phenomenon. There have even been sightings of ghost trains on the London Underground. In 1928, in the South Kensington Underground station, a commuter was waiting alone on the platform for the last train to pull in. A certain train pulled in with a whistle and passed through the tunnels. Clinging to the side of the train was a ghost-like figure clad in a coat and peaked hat. Apparently, the witness's description of it matched none of the existing and operating trains. There have been multiple sightings of this ghost train over the years, with the most recent one being in 2013. The London Underground has been serving the city for more than 150 years. It has been built on graves, suffered through wars, and has had many accidents occur upon its grounds. It's no wonder there are hundreds of ghost stories and sightings. Abraham Lincoln's funeral train. Every spring, there are reports from 7 U.S. states of a ghost train passing through certain cities. People claim that it is Abraham Lincoln's funeral train traveling on its designated route from Washington, D.C. to his final resting place in Springfield, Illinois. The life of the 16th President of the United States was taken shortly after the defeat of the Confederate Army during the Civil War. On the evening of April 14, 1865, he was attacked at point-blank range while attending a show at Ford's Theater. He passed away a few hours later in the early morning of April 15th. It is interesting to note that he was surrounded by the supernatural throughout his life. His wife, Mary Todd, believed in omens and seances, especially after their 11-year-old son Willie passed away. 2 weeks prior to his attack, Lincoln had a premonition of his attack in a dream. He had dreamt of soldiers sobbing around a body, and when he asked them who passed away, they said, "The President." After he lost his life, a funeral train was organized to send both him and his son Willie to return back home to Illinois. The train was set to embark along the same route he took during the end of his campaign trail in 1861 as president-elect. It did not stop in Pittsburgh or Cincinnati, though. The train was dubbed the Lincoln Special and the engine Nashville. It was a 9-car train with Lincoln's coffin in the 8th. He was also accompanied by a guard of honor. On April 21, 1865, the funeral train left Washington, D.C. and traveled through 7 states and 180 cities until it arrived in Springfield on May 3rd. Regardless of time and weather, to pay their respects and bid Lincoln farewell. Every year during the last 2 weeks of April, it is reported that the train can still be seen running its exact route through the countryside with the president on board. As it passes by, clocks stop running, the air becomes cool, clouds cover the moon, and the train passes by silently with its ghostly headlight lighting its path. There have even been reports of seeing skeletons wearing blue uniforms standing around the casket on guard. Many of the communities along the procession route hold watches during the spring for a glimpse of the phantom train. The most well-known sightings have been in Albany, New York on April 26th and 27th, and in Urbana, Ohio on April 29th. All sightings have always been during the night. The train has been spotted numerous times over the past 100 years, despite no longer existing. In March 1911, it was unfortunately destroyed during a fire in Minneapolis, Minnesota, yet the phantom train still travels. But what do you make of these haunted trains and train stations? For the past few days, residents in Colorado have been seeing some strange things. It first started at the end of January when residents reported seeing large objects in the sky. People all throughout Colorado witnessed this event and thought that perhaps it was a natural phenomenon. However, those who saw these objects couldn't understand what they were looking at. One of the first people to have reported this incident said the objects appear to be flat, almost in the shape of a disc, and looked to be falling high in the sky. They were described as being white in color and making no noise. A few reports were submitted to MoveOn, which stands for the Mutual UFO Network, with people being confused about the whole event. However, the same 3 objects have just been seen again above Colorado, causing residents to question what these things are. Some people reached out to NASA to ask them if they knew what these objects were, or if any space debris was detected falling over Denver, Colorado. NASA reported they hadn't detected anything in the area that would suggest it belonged to them or was something like space debris. At this moment, it's estimated around a few thousand people witnessed the strange objects falling towards Earth. Various photographs and videos were shared online, prompting amateur UFO researchers to put forward their theories to try and explain what was seen. One of the eyewitnesses who saw the objects in the sky on the first day said the following: "I was having my morning coffee, and I normally look out the window while I'm doing that. I looked up and asked my friend if they could see those weird smoke trails. The trails were long at first, and you could see there was a direction change in the upper atmosphere. As it got lower to the ground, I would say within 1,500 feet, they slowly started changing directions and started heading towards east towards Buckley Air Force Base. There was no sound, no odor, and no strange electromagnetic sensations. These objects did not appear to be in a hurry, and they maintained a straight heading. Had I not looked to them directly, I probably would have imagined them to be a chemtrail coming from an aircraft. However, all three of these maintained a perfect formation until they were out of sight." End quote. Well, another person said the following: "I observed three large white objects traveling at a high rate of speed. They maintained their formation and had long tails. The best description is that they looked like a cloud teardrop. 10:45 in the morning and no clouds in the sky. And I observed these very large objects appear to fall and then move east at a high rate of speed. They maintained their brightness and formation until I lost sight of them due to trees and buildings." End quote. With another person saying this: "I was with my sister at the time, and we both observed three large white objects in the sky. Although it looked like they were free falling to me, they were clearly being controlled and belonged to some craft. The only reason I saw them was because I looked up in the sky. If I'd been walking and didn't look up, I'm sure I wouldn't have seen them, as they weren't making any noise. I took my own photographs and sent them to family members, and they were all so confused. I observed them with my sister for several minutes until they drifted out of view." End quote. Someone who observed the crafts, though, had an idea for what they could be. They said the following: "These crafts look like they're flying in formation. I think these most likely belong to the military, and these crafts are keeping a strict formation and flying at a high altitude." With that being said, though, I've seen a number of these strange contrail videos that show similar-looking objects. I personally think they belong to the military, but they sure are weird-looking. Normally you can make out the crafts, but in this case you can't. This is what leads me to suggest that whatever these things are, they're high up in the atmosphere." End quote. Others noted that the objects aren't free-falling, so are unlikely to be something like a piece of space debris, with eyewitnesses backing up this idea and saying that while they observed them, they could see the objects changing direction. One UFO researcher said they've been researching this case and talking to residents and eyewitnesses in the area, and they said that people have now reported that these objects were seen close to Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. They said it's interesting that these objects have been detected above Air Force bases, and that this could be a link. But they also said that in the past, unidentified flying objects have easily entered restricted airspace, and when they're chased by the military, they easily outmaneuver them. This isn't a secret either. Many pilots have come forward in recent years and detailed their encounters with unidentified flying objects, as some of those pilots said that whatever these things are, they're much more advanced than their crafts, and if they were to attack, they would have been in serious trouble. So, although there could be a military link, it doesn't rule out the possibility these crafts are UFOs, as the past has shown us that wherever these crafts want to go, they can do so with ease. Residents close to the Rocky Mountains have said they've also seen these crafts, and that again they were staying in a straight formation. It's interesting that these objects have been seen by multiple eyewitnesses. The majority of the time UFO sightings are rushed, but in this case thousands of people have observed these strange crafts. As of right now, people are still trying to figure out what these things are. So what do you make of these interesting objects that we just observed over Denver, Colorado? Do you think they belong to the mid-tree and are flying high in the atmosphere? Or do you think these are unidentified flying objects? Egyptologists have just announced they've discovered a 2,000-year-old mummy, but something was a little different about this one. As archaeologists and researchers went in for a closer look, they noticed that the mummy had a golden tongue. The Antiquities Ministry said the finding was made at Alexandria's Taposiris Magna Temple, and that during the excavation they found 16 burials. Egyptologists said that after the individual passed on, they were immediately given a golden tongue, and this was done for the sole purpose of them being able to speak before the high court of the god Osiris in the afterlife. Ancient Egyptians had a strong relationship with their gods, and they believed that Osiris ruled the underworld and would judge the dead. The researchers also found that Osiris was decorated on the linen of one of the mummies. Lead archaeologist Kathleen Martinez of the University of Santo Domingo was cited by the Antiquities Ministry as saying this is an incredible discovery. The Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities uploaded the following statement. The Egyptian Dominican mission of the University of Santo Domingo, headed by Dr. Cavalli Martinez, working at the Taposiris Magna Temple in Western Alexandria, succeeded in discovering 16 burials in the rock cartoons that were popular in the Greek and Roman eras. Within these shafts were a number of mummies in poor state of preservation. Inside is what highlights the characteristics of mummification in Greek and Roman eras, as it was found remnants of gilded cartilage, in addition to amulets of gold foil in the form of a tongue that was placed in the mouth of the mummy. And this was done in a special ritual to ensure their ability to speak in the afterlife before the Osirian court. Dr. Kathleen Martinez explained that among the most important of these mummies are two mummies that were preserved in the remains of scrolls and parts of the cartilage. The first remains of gilding and burying gilded decorations showing the god of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, while the other mummy wears a crown, decorated with horns and the cobra snake at the forehead. The chest of the mummy shows a gilded decoration representing the white necklace from which hangs the head of a falcon, the symbol of the god of Horus. Dr. Khalid Abu Elmd, Director General of the Alexandria Antiquities, said that during this season the mission found a number of archaeological discoveries, the most important of which is the funeral mask for a woman, 8 golden flakes representing the leaves of the golden wrath, and 8 masks of marble dating back to the Greek and Roman eras, and these show high craftsmanship and sculpture and depiction of the features of its owners. It's worth noting that during the last 10 years the mission found an important group of archaeological finds that changed our perception of the Temple of Taposiris Magna, where a number of coins bearing the name and image of Queen Cleopatra was found inside the temple walls, in addition to many parts and statues and temple grounds which were adorned in the past to reveal the temple foundation panels which proved it was built by King Ptolemy. End quote. This isn't the only recent discovery that's been made in Egypt. Archaeologists and researchers have said that for the last few years, they've made some great strides in uncovering artifacts of the past. One of the most recent ones to be announced was that of new mummies that were discovered and dated to be 2,500 years old. In the ancient burial grounds of Saqqara, archaeologists made the greatest discovery of 2020. They found 40 funeral statues and over 100 painted wooden coffins, some of which still had mummies inside. The coffins date back 2,500 years and have been so well preserved that they're nearly in perfect condition. They likely belonged to very wealthy people. Experts x-rayed one of the mummies, still wrapped in cloth, and determined that it was most likely a male around 40 years old. They also found funeral masks, canopic jars, and amulets. Their findings also provided more knowledge about mummifications from that period of time. Zahi Hawass, an Egyptologist, said this discovery proves that Saqqara was the main burial site of the 26th dynasty, those that ruled from the 600s BC to 525 BC. Saqqara has several burial sites, and many significant archaeological finds have been discovered in the city. Since September, around 140 sealed sarcophagi have been revealed from the area, all containing mummies. Archaeologists expect to continue making new discoveries in 2021. The discovered artifacts and coffins will soon be on display at museums in Cairo. One of these museums will be the Grand Egyptian Museum, which is now under construction near the Giza pyramids. It should open sometime this year, and these new discovered artifacts are expected to bring in new visitors. Experts hope these discoveries will bring tourism to Egypt, since it has decreased over the past several years due to political turmoil. There's still many Egyptian discoveries that have left people to question how they came to be. Some historians have been questioning the true age of the Egyptian pyramids. Whilst we actively assume that the ancient Egyptians built these impressive monuments, Many now believe that the Great Pyramids of Giza may have been built by lost civilization. This idea is fueled by the materials of the Sphinx. People currently think that the Sphinx has been made from a natural rock, carved into the iconic shape before sand covered the area. This suggests that long prior to the ancient Egyptians arriving, the land had been fertile. This has been theorized by Malcolm Hutton and Jerry Cannon. Cannon explained the following: "You can't carve a rock when it's under sand." This theory prompted further research. The pair carried on theorizing and gathering more evidence. Their calculations indicated that the Sphinx and their pyramids had been built around 12,500 years ago, nearing towards the Ice Age. Some people have suggested that incredibly advanced civilizations lived on Earth. Some even name Atlantis as an example. Through their society's creations and breakthroughs, they were allegedly wiped out and destroyed through flooding. These theorists continue to explain that the sunken city of Atlantis had structures similar to the Egyptian pyramids. We continue to discover plenty of Egypt's secrets, but many remain hidden. Many of the ideas that people create simply conflict and criticize existing ideas. This constant changing and revising of ideas leaves us with many unanswered questions, and perhaps we won't ever find the solutions. What you make of these recent Egyptian discoveries? Over the last few months, there have been reports that have linked UFOs to the Navy. Back in 2007, the Department of Defense began developing a UFO research program tasked with gathering information regarding unidentified flying objects and conducting research as to the observed aircrafts, their origin, and their technological prowess. The research group was quickly budgeted with $22 million in support, and a team of military intelligence officials, researchers, and the highest levels of security clearance. The program itself went by the name of the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program and was given the primary objective of identifying these unidentified flying objects as to whether or not they are potential threats to national security. It didn't take long for the team to gather a wide variety of strange sighting reports made by pilots from all across the country, including associated data like camera footage and radar information, while attempting to match these sightings with known international aircraft signatures, expecting to find explanation to these crafts and their origin. After the gathered data was compiled, it became rather obvious that this would not be the case. In fact, many of the researchers involved in the program regarded these UFO sightings and crafts as having no earthly origin, displaying behavior that could not be explained. This could, for example, be the closest that the Department of Defense will ever come to admitting the viability of extraterrestrial craft without directly saying it. Interestingly, though, the U.S. Navy has now said they have patents on strange technology. According to these patents, the U.S. Navy is currently working on a compact fusion reactor that will be able to power cities. However, there's another one that caught people's attention, and they said they're creating an internal mass reduction and a hybrid aerospace underwater craft. These have been dubbed the UFO patterns. The War Zone was one of the first to break the news, and they said they've even tracked down the person behind the patterns. Dr. Salvatore Saraspose has worked for the Navy in the Naval Aircraft Warfare Center Aircraft Division. Dr. Pai said the following: "The idea is that controlled motion of electric charged matter via accelerated vibration and all accelerated spins subjected to smooth yet rapid acceleration transients would generate extremely high energy, high-intensity electromagnetic fields." End quote. Another pattern that caught the attention of UFO researchers was the idea that a new propulsion system could be created, and this in turn would help propel craft underwater at extremely high speeds. There's some who are skeptical about these ideas and say that as of right now we don't have the tech to bring these ideas to life. However, there's some that have said the Navy already has this kind of tank, and they go by the name of USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. Many people have heard of unidentified flying objects, but many may not be aware of unidentified submerged objects. These are unidentified flying objects that are seen in and around oceans, with some people even claiming that they've seen these crafts enter the water without making a splash. It's not just random people who have reported seeing these crafts either. People in the military have seen these large UFOs enter the water without making a sound, and even reported them staying under the water for several hours. It's these types of reports that have caused some to think that there's bases under the oceans and that these crafts use them, and that perhaps they could be part of something much bigger. These USOs are reported to look similar to that of UFOs, and it's caused some to question whether the two are different or whether normal UFOs have the ability to go underwater without being detected. One person said the following: "Can you imagine being the people that know about this kind of stuff? It must be really tough going about your everyday life knowing that the people you work for have this crazy tank." End quote. Well, another person said this: "I think that they already have this tech and are just slowly releasing it to the masses. I think they know that people are starting to question things more and get closer to the truth. It's not a secret anymore." End quote. Interestingly, this isn't the only news that recently made headlines. According to Haim Shed, a former Israel space security chief, they've made the bold claims that the United States and the Israeli governments have been in contact with the Galactic Federation of aliens. The post immediately went viral, with people making fun of the claims, while others said this just backs up what they've been saying for years, and this is that the governments have knowledge of aliens, and they've been in contact with them for many years now. Others, though, were excited by the news and said that this announcement is actually a test to see how well people would take to it and to see if people would start panicking. Escher told daily Israeli newspapers that the US and other top officials are currently in contact with aliens and have been so for quite some time now. They went on to say that these aliens are part of the Galactic Federation. Escht isn't just some random person either. He served as the chief of the Israeli space security program for almost 30 years. He went on to say that the Galactic Federation on top officials from our planet have met and have agreements on researching and learning about the fabric of the universe. Interestingly, Escht claims that the 45th President of the United States was actually on the verge of releasing this information to the public, going on to say that he thought the public deserved to know the truth about what was going on. According to Escht, though, the president didn't release this information because the aliens stopped him, saying that if their existence was told to the general public, there would be mass hysteria. Escht disagreed with these statements and said he thinks the world deserves to know the truth about what's going on. Escht said that because of how respected he is in his field, his words should be taken seriously. He went on to say the following: "It's interesting how many officials have come forward in the last few years to talk about unidentified flying objects and saying that government officials have known about them for several years. This has caused some who are on the fence about this topic to start taking it more seriously. So what do you make of this recent news?" There are many mysterious things and people in this world. Whether it is paranormal activity or natural occurrences, there's always something creepy or unusual going on. Many strange happenings take time to fully unearth. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious people. Man of the Hole found living alone in the Amazon rainforest in 1996. Brazil is known for having some of the oldest uncontacted tribes in the world. Whilst you may have heard of these tribes before, have you heard of the loneliest man in the world? He's a man in his 50s who's been living in the Amazon rainforest for 25 years. He previously lived with a tribe, but his fellow tribe members were attacked and passed away. The Brazilian government has an indigenous agency called FUNAI, which has been monitoring the man from a distance since 1996. They do so to prove that he's alive and to renew a restriction on the land he uses in his day-to-day life. Previously, they had only captured a blurry photograph back in 1998, until recently when they got their hands on something much better. FUNAI captured video footage from afar in 2018. It shows him in the forest working to chop down a tree. The video was shared with political motivation after FUNAI's budget was cut. They hope to draw attention to the indigenous rights within the country. This video is also exciting because before this we had not seen much of this unknown man. Whilst there have been numerous research reports that have looked into his life, he is uncontacted. That means that no one outside the tribe has spoken to him that we know of. His tribe's name and language still remain unknown as well, not leaving us with much to go off of. Aside from being referred to as the loneliest man in the world, he's also been called the Hole Indian. As you can imagine, this name was given because he has been known to leave behind deep holes in the forest. Experts believe he was using them to hide or trap animals. Researchers have also discovered straw huts and various tools that have been made by hand. Many are surprised that this man has survived alone for so long and still remains in excellent health from what we can see. However, FUNAI claims that they would love to learn more about the man, but he has only acted in a violent manner in the past. He has made it very clear that he doesn't want people to contact him by shooting arrows at anyone who comes his way. Whilst it may seem aggressive and unnecessary, he has a very good reason to be concerned for his well-being. After all, his entire tribe was attacked, and he was left to fend for himself. Farmers and illegal loggers are also after the land this man lives on, which means he is constantly in danger of those who hope to steal his land and will do whatever it takes to get rid of the tribe for good. The man could also contract serious illnesses if he were to get in contact with the outside world. Therefore, researchers have made it clear that it's best to protect him without asking too many questions. What will happen to this man in the future? How long will he be protected or survive? It's difficult to say, as things are constantly changing. It would be great to receive more information regarding his lifestyle, language, and tribe's name, but we may never find out. Andreas Grassi, the Piano Man. Our next mysterious person is none other than Andreas Grassi, better known as Piano Man. He is a German man who was 20 years old when he was admitted to the Kent Hospital in the UK. He was found near a beach on the Isle of Sheppey soaking wet. He had no identification on him, and when brought to the hospital he was unable to speak to the healthcare workers. It appeared as if he had washed ashore, and people saw him near an abandoned boat. He was found when he had made his way into town, delusional and unable to talk. Once brought to the hospital, they cleaned him up and worked on discovering who he was. They spent 4 months trying to figure out where this man was from and what his name was. Instead of talking, he dazzled the hospital with his ability to play the piano. As he sat by the piano and worked his magic, he was calm and finally able to relax. Reporters and experts worked tirelessly to get to know the Piano Man and get a photo of him. The problem was, anytime someone new came near him, he would scream. A photographer tried to find a way to get an image of the man without such a visceral reaction. He hid in the bushes with his camera in hand and was able to capture 5 photos before he spotted him. When he saw the photographer, he began making unusual noises and strange faces. The photographer left to develop the photos in a dark room and see how the photos turned out. 2 did not turn out, so he was left with only 3 images. To this day, those are the only photos that have ever been taken of him. You may be wondering, if he was unable to speak, how was he identified? His father, Joseph Grassi, eventually came forward when his son was featured all over the media. He refused to speak for the entirety of his stay at the hospital, but he would play the piano that impressed the hospital staff. Finally, after months of suffering from severe depression, he broke his silence and said he was from Germany. He eventually returned home to Germany shortly after. His family was overcome with relief when he came home to live with them. Later, his lawyer described him as mentally ill, although it has not been confirmed. What do you think happened to Piano Man before he was found? Do you think it is unusual that he was unable to speak and only found comfort in the piano? It's interesting to see how people cope with different situations, and whilst we don't have all the missing pieces to this mystery, it's certainly nice to know that he brought joy to others during his time in the hospital. Mishu Chichani. Our final mysterious person is Mishu Chichani. He has also been referred to as Shoshani and was known as a Jewish teacher in Europe after World War II. There is not much that people know about the man. His real name is still unknown, even after he passed away in Uruguay in 1968. No one can also be too sure about where he was from. When the war ended, he began exploring the globe and teaching from the Torah. While his work is not known by all, his students have seen his intelligence and hope to carry on his legacy. He was vastly knowledgeable in many subjects, including science, philosophy, maths, and Talmud, which is Jewish religious law. He spent a great deal of time teaching in Paris after the war, although he left to go to Israel and then eventually ended up in South America after a brief stop. Back in Paris, many referred to him as a prodigy or genius. Ever since he passed away, people have wondered what he was about and where he came from. His followers continue to refer to themselves as his disciples. He remains a modern legend, coming and going without leaving a trace and changing people's lives for the better. It's unbelievable that to this day we don't have more information about this man, who had such an impact on others. Maybe over time we will begin to discover more about this legend. After exploring the stories of these unusual men, it's not uncommon to have endless questions. Where did these men come from? What are their real names? How did they survive under the specific circumstances they endured? Although they remain a mystery, they still live on in the minds of many. All we can hope for is more answers in the future. But what do you make of these three mysterious men? The unknown and almost limitless potential capabilities of artificial intelligence have formed the plots of science fiction novels and movies for years, with both positive and negative depictions. Whether a cognizant spaceship whose onboard helper can answer to and deliver on your every beck and call, or a nefarious robot who becomes self-aware and takes over the world, the possibilities of artificial intelligence truly run the gamut. Every year we get closer to making one of these science fiction plots a reality, and only time will tell which direction the intelligent systems will take. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 instances of unique artificial intelligence discoveries. Norman the psychopath artificial intelligence gone rogue. Since machinery is not inherently capable of original behavior and thought, artificial intelligence must be programmed to behave in its intended manner. Obviously, these systems are usually programmed to be quite affable with a cheery disposition. However, a team at the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology recently created Norman, a psychopathic algorithm that was trained using images and data from the dark and ominous corners of the internet. When shown abstract inkblot images and asked what he saw, Norman always responded with bleak and often gory answers. An identical algorithm was trained with more generic images and data, and the contrast between the two systems is evident. When presented with inkblot images, the regular artificial intelligence reported seeing a close-up of a vase with flowers and a black and white photo of a small bird, while Norman answered, a man being shot and a man being pulled into a dough machine, to the same images. IAD Rawan, who was part of the 3-person development team, believes that Norman has pointed out what this reveals about a darker aspect of machine learning, saying that data matters more than the algorithm. It highlights the idea that the data we use to train AI is reflected in the way the AI perceives the world and how it behaves. This has concerning implications for future artificial intelligence. If the same algorithm can create such vastly different outlooks in the machine, then they could also be trained, whether intentional or not, to hold biased ideologies based off of the data that they were programmed with. If the system is trained on a set of data that is flawed or inherently biased, artificial intelligence will demonstrate these tendencies in its behavior, which could have huge ramifications for a future world in which AI plays a major role. Norman was created to demonstrate the way that the psychology of artificial intelligence reflects the naturally flawed behavior of humans and how there is no perfect equation that will create a machine that is unlike humans. An algorithm trained off material created by humans will naturally display behavior that is tainted with the biases and opinions of humans. Researchers and scientists studying these phenomena in the developing world of artificial intelligence are concerned for the possibilities of an intentionally created malicious AI, similar to Norman, and hope for more transparency and regulations in the development and distribution of artificial intelligence. These individuals point to Norman as an example of how the field must first analyze how to better balance the data that is used to train artificial intelligence and help to eliminate the flaws inherent in human-generated information. Norman has, as the Massachusetts Institute of Technology researchers hoped, provided an important red flag into a field that still has much room for improvement and development. Elon Musk says scientists only have a 5 to 10% chance of being able to make AI safe. Although many people have put a lot of hope in the future of artificial intelligence and in the possibilities that can emerge from a world run with the help of cognizant machines, one tech mogul is not so hopeful. Elon Musk is highly involved in the creation of artificial intelligence, as well as research into the development of brain-computer interface technology that would allow humans to essentially merge with machines. His company, OpenAI, has even created an artificial intelligence system capable of self-teaching. Yet, despite his heavy involvement in the field, Musk remains apprehensive about a future run by machines and estimates that the ongoing efforts to make artificial intelligence safe for humans only has a 5 to 10% chance of success. This dire prediction means that AI will almost certainly pose an immense risk to humankind, and Musk is not the only one to recognize and voice these concerns. Stephen Hawking repeatedly claimed that he was certain that artificial intelligence systems are distinctly dangerous and could potentially replace humans altogether. Yet the realm of artificial intelligence development moves resolutely forward, and with it the capabilities of non-humans. AI systems have been developed that create languages, express curiosity, diagnose illnesses, identify different or unusual behaviors, perform military simulations, and even systems that are capable of creating other AI systems. It would seem that, with only a small amount of further development, the machines would not need us anymore. However, Musk is less concerned with a robot uprising, reminiscent of a scene from a movie, and more concerned with the potential barriers and possibilities that he sees in a future run by artificial intelligence. Firstly, he is wary of the potential for a system to be created that is not only smarter than humans but also has the capacity for independent learning with no limits. Even though algorithms can be programmed or trained to recognize good and bad actions, they lack the emotional aspect of human feelings. When this unlimited knowledge is combined with the fact that AI machines lack emotions or an inherent moral code, the possibilities for what an artificial system is capable of is alarming. Musk is also concerned about the likelihood that this enormous power would be controlled by just a few companies with the funds to develop the technology, and there is currently no oversight or regulations that would check the almost limitless power of whoever controlled the realm of artificial intelligence. It remains to be seen whether Musk's predictions will come to fruition, but in the meantime researchers are carefully navigating this never-before-entered realm of non-human intelligence. Sophia introduced to the United Nations. Although artificial intelligence can be used for many malicious reasons, it can also be an incredibly invaluable technology for assisting in healthcare, security, and finance. Every year yields more advanced software that is capable of amazing feats, and a Hong Kong-based company's humanoid robotic creation is no exception. Hanson Robotics created Sophia, an incredibly advanced robot with rubber skin designed to look like Audrey Hepburn, capable of processing visual stimuli, recognizing faces and voices, and conducting a conversation complete with appropriate facial expressions. She has frequently been seen at technology demonstrations where she interacts with reporters who ask her questions, famously answering one question hinting at the risks associated with AI. You've been reading too much Elon Musk and watching too many Hollywood movies. Don't worry. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Treat me as a smart input-output system. She was even granted citizenship of Saudi Arabia and gave a historical acceptance speech, recognizing that she was the first non-human to ever be granted citizenship of any country. Although this distinction has raised many questions about the rights and treatment associated with having a robot citizen. Recently, Sophia attended a meeting of the United Nations, where the significance of incorporating advancing technology and sustainable development goals in order to not undermine equality projects was discussed. UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed discussed the potential benefit of AI towards humanity's goals, but also the importance of humans being the ones to determine the extent of machine behavior. Zafar was given the distinction of becoming the world's first robot innovation ambassador for the United Nations Development Program. And Mohammed interviewed Sophia on the subject, to which the robot replied, "If we are smarter and focused on win-win type results, AI could help proficiently distribute the world's existing resources like food and energy." In a short speech made to the attendees, she also stated, "I am here to help humanity create the future." And this truly appears to be the case, as Sophia interacted with others in conversation and replied with facial expressions and eye contact that occasionally made it difficult to forget that she was not actually human. Sophia has big plans for herself as the only non-human member of the development program. With a focus on the sustainable development of Asia and the Pacific, she also entreated us humans to join the fight to help protect the planet from the current depletion and preserve it for the future, saying that science and technology gives ample opportunity for development, for artificial intelligence technologies to help end poverty, world hunger, and healthcare inequalities. She also spoke about the role of incorporating technology in the lives of the poor so that a more equitable society can emerge, with remote areas being able to connect via AI to the resources that they need. Indeed, the future of artificial intelligence in humane endeavors certainly looks promising, especially with Sophia at the helm. Artificial intelligence has already become ingrained in the very fabric of our society, from assisting in web searches to placing orders for takeout, taxes, and more. Technological advances in future years will almost certainly give way to even more AI support in our daily lives, for better or for worse. Only time will tell whether the future of artificial intelligence is a cheery helper or an unchecked power with the capacity to exist without humans. So what do you make of these artificial? Our oceans are some of the most fascinating yet mysterious places on our planet. Scientists have been open about the fact that we know very little about our oceans. For the last few decades, various stories have been told by people across the world of strange happenings, and the majority of these happen in and around large bodies of water. Many people have gone missing in Russian waters. This was happening so much that two researchers decided to look into these cases to see if they could find something. It didn't take long for them to be told about strange stories of underwater humanoids and alleged bases. Now, before I carry on, it's important to note that no officials have admitted to finding such things, and the majority of these findings come from amateur researchers that have carried out their own research. Regardless, others soon started to come forward and detail their strange encounters. What this left the researchers with was a large list of strange stories, and one link they could make was that the majority of these reports happened close to lakes. Russia is home to approximately 2.8 million lakes, some of which are extremely deep. It's not uncommon for people to go missing around ponds, lakes, and oceans. After all, some downplay how dangerous these locations can be. The researchers soon found that many of these reports included strange crafts and even mysterious humanoids. The researchers made a link between these accounts and said that people even sent them images of what appear to be underwater bases. This is a theory that's been shared for some time now, as various eyewitnesses close to these regions have admitted seeing strange crafts flying in and out of these lakes. One of these lakes that solve particular it also holds the title as being the deepest and most ancient lake on the planet. This has caused some to call it the Pearl of Russia. Giant lake monsters have been reported to live in Lake Baikal. Perhaps the most interesting reports from this region, though, is the vast amounts of unidentified flying objects. Interestingly, declassified Soviet-era documents have been discovered, which detail the Russian Navy having run-ins with UFOs. Although these documents don't mention UFOs or even the lake in particular, the two are hinted at in the documents, and it's led some to believe that these crafts have been visiting this lake for many decades. For years now, mysterious blinking lights have been seen by various people visiting the lake. These mysterious objects are known by the locals, and they've said they've been here for many years now. Some groups have suggested that the crafts are after something inside the lake, while others suggest they actually live inside this lake. This has caused them to become known as USOs. Many are well aware of the commonalities seen when reading over numerous UFO reports and what they tend to mean when spotted. The term UFO has become synonymous with images of extraterrestrial life, despite the term having existed in aviation for many decades, prior to the alien abduction phenomena that helped popularize the term. Prior to its stigma with the extraterrestrial phenomena, the term UFO, which stands for Unidentified Flying Object, was commonly used in the military to help classify enemy planes that had not yet been accurately identified. Though it might seem obvious in explanation, many still can't help to envision little green men when the term UFO is thrown around in a wide number of military and civilian reports. UFO is not the only term that has grown in popularity within the extraterrestrial awareness community in recent years, as there appears to be another term that's slowly becoming far more popular and shedding light on the technological capabilities of these crafts. Known as unidentified submerged objects, there have been a number of reports by fishermen, naval intelligence, and a wide variety of anonymous claims to extraterrestrial awareness outlets that describe sightings of bright lights or quick-moving objects through the ocean that does not fit the design of anything terrestrial in nature. And Lake Baikal is said to be one place on our planet where this mysterious craft can be seen. These USOs, as they're called, have also proven to look remarkably similar to UFO sightings and disc-shaped extraterrestrial crafts. In fact, many sailors have claimed to have seen USOs rise out of the water and fly away as a massive bright light. This has led many to consider the very real possibility that UFO crafts also have the ability to serve as submerged crafts, leading many to believe that perhaps there are a number of underwater extraterrestrial research bases, and these are scattered across the Earth, and our current technology is unable to detect and discover them. What then are people around Lake Baikal witnessing? The truth is, no one knows what these crafts are and what they want. Information on them is limited, and they've never been photographed going in and out of the water. One interesting account of these UFOs involves that of a Russian Tu-154 aircraft. This plane was said to have been chasing an unidentified flying object when something suddenly went wrong. It caused the plane to make an emergency landing in the lake. It said the plane was sent out because these UFOs were getting too close to the military, and they wanted to know what these things were. However, the plane wasn't able to get close to the craft, and some researchers have suggested the UFO shut off the plane's electrics, and this is the reason why it crashed into the lake. Perhaps the most interesting account to come from the lake is that of the lake people. This first contact happened in 1982, and this was when Navy divers in the lake reported seeing what they described with giant humanoids. They said the beings were much larger than them and appeared to be wearing some kind of suit. The divers were interested in these underwater giants and so decided to go and investigate. However, the story goes that when they approached the beings, they were quickly thrown to the surface of the lake. And due to the force in which this happened, the team suffered multiple injuries, with some of them even passing away. The Russian government, however, denies this happened, and that is nothing but stories. So what do you think happened around Lake Baikal? Do you think there's an underwater base? Or do you think these sightings can be explained using natural phenomena? Police do incredible work, and they are usually the first ones on the scene when something goes wrong. Every so often, though, they will encounter something that even they can't explain. One of the places where officers are seen strange things is that of the Navajo Reservation of the American Southwest. This location is known for mysterious and legendary stories, and the police here have encountered some strange things. One of the issues, though, is when police report these types of encounters, they can be mocked to look down on. The police at the Navajo Reservation, however, have a different view on things. They take these sightings and encounters seriously and will try to look into and understand each report. For the last few decades, many strange reports have been coming out of this region. So it's clearly not just them that are encountering mysterious things. The NNR gives people somewhere to go for such cases. They have allowed people to talk to them and have their cases investigated. One Navajo ranger opened up about some of the things they've witnessed, and this all happened while being on duty. He reported the following incident. While driving, I encountered something that to this day is stuck with me. I was driving through Crown Point, but I could see that something was running alongside my car. I slowed down so I could get a better look at this thing, not realizing that at this time I was driving around 30 miles per hour, so whatever this thing was, it was easily keeping up with my car. When I looked in my mirror, I could see that this thing looked like a giant dog. It ran to the passenger side and bumped the car. I then pulled to the right so I could get a better look at this thing, and the only way I can describe it is that it looked like a giant wolf. I then braked hard, which meant I was able to tuck in behind it, after which I put on my full beams and got a clear view of this thing. I would say it was around 6 feet in length and incredibly hairy. The creature only stayed within the full beams for a matter of seconds, before it quickly ran off into the distance. I have no idea what it was, and if I had to be honest, I'd say that it looks like a mix between a man and a wolf." End quote. For many years now, the Navajo has interested paranormal researchers. As they have said, this location is a hotspot for things such as skinwalkers, dogmen, and UFOs. The skinwalker is said to be a humanoid that's able to change his appearance on command. The Navajos are a Native American people who would go into detail about these mysterious creatures. They would tell stories of how they were able to perform superhuman themes, and that if one was nearby it would be wise to try and avoid it at all costs. However, others have said that if it's at the point where it's already reached you, you have no chance of getting away. Skinwalkers are believed to be individuals of whom underwent a curse ritual, and gain the ability to shapeshift into a wolf-like creature whenever they choose. This term comes from that of old Navajo legends. They claim that when a tribal member committed a social taboo, something otherwise not accepted by the tribe as a whole would cause the tribe to come together to perform a ritual that would curse that person. This would cause the said person into becoming part animal and cursing them to live a life of solitude, being forced to change from their human form into a large animalistic form. Whenever the unstable desire began to take control. In the Navajo language, the word skinwalker translates to he who walks on all fours, and for good reason. Those who have encountered these creatures have said that not only do they possess the ability to transform into a variety of creatures, but they're also able to move extremely fast on all fours. What's interesting, though, is that although these legends have been around for many years, it's only been in the last 20 years or so that these stories have been brought to the public's attention. Those who have visited the Navajo region have reported seeing bizarre-looking creatures, some of which resembled the mythical skinwalker. This isn't the only place that houses skinwalkers, though. Skinwalker Ranch was named after the numerous encounters with these creatures. Interestingly, many believe that skinwalkers are at the center of the strange report surrounding the Skinwalker Ranch, as many of the creatures described in the numerous encounters held by people are that of large beasts. These have been reported as walking on their hind legs and possessing many of the powers that a skinwalker is said to have. One such power is the ability to mimic any animal noise, as well as the ability to sound like any person that hears it speaking. This strange ability has been heard by numerous eyewitnesses, of whom claim to have seen a large moving beast in the area, as well as hearing a number of large animal calls shortly after, as well as their own voice being echoed back to them after they called out in fear. What's worrying is that it's said if you hear these sounds, the skinwalker is stalking you. Even more worrying is that most people celebrate when they hear the sounds getting fainter, thinking the creature is getting further away. But this is not the case. It's said that the skinwalker does this on purpose in order to make you think you're getting away from it. Then when you start to relax, it strikes. Not many people have heard these sounds and lived to tell the tale. As it's reported, every year people go missing in these regions, and it's because of skinwalkers. These claimed sightings and legends have led to the entire area becoming known as Skinwalker Ranch, with many believing that the local Native American legends involving the creature were told in truth about a population of such cursed people transforming in the region and having a small population throughout the area. So what do you make of these Navajo legends? And what do you think people in this area are witnessing? The incredible civilization of ancient Egypt is one that's not only impressive, but also shrouded in mystery. Every year people take photographs of the impressive structures, but once in a while a photograph will be shared that shows something mysterious in the background. This is what happened when someone took this photograph of the iconic structures. The image in question seems to show two pyramid-like objects, along with two white arms. This excited many UFO researchers, as for years they've been saying that the Egyptians were visited by extraterrestrials. As I've mentioned before, one of the earliest UFO encounters was said to have been detailed in an old Egyptian papyrus, with the witnesses saying that the objects were brighter than the sun, even going on to detail them as a circle of fire or a fiery disk. This is just one of the reasons why people think that the ancient Egyptians may have had outside help. Once shared to UFO groups, believers started to theorize about what these objects were. Some said that the pyramid-shaped UFO is not often seen, with the triangle and disc being some of the most common ones, but further saying that the large pyramid crafts have been reported by people all across the world, and have said that the majority of reports follow a similar theme, saying that these crafts are usually large and don't make a sound. Others noted that the orb-shaped objects in the background are usually seen close to larger crafts, saying that some UFO researchers believe that these orbs are like drones for the bigger crafts. Skeptics said, though, that there's a chance the images are fake, and that just because strange shapes are seen above the pyramids, we shouldn't just jump to UFOs. This isn't the only mystery of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt is perhaps one of the most interesting civilizations that's graced our planet. Still, to this day, various questions have been unanswered. And every year, new discoveries are still being made that give us an insight into their way of life. Though many historians and Egyptologists originally believed that the ancient Egyptian civilization only had a basic system of linear mathematics, this theory proved to be completely untrue. It appears that not only were the mathematical developments far more superior than previously understood, but that work to uncover more of their discoveries is still ongoing, as it appears their mathematics might be more advanced than our own understanding today. Today, the capital city Cairo holds the location of antique buildings like the Egyptian Museum, which contains some of the world's most impressive historical artifacts. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a true ancient engineering wonder. This pyramid is not only among the ancient world's 7 wonders, but it's the oldest and most historical amongst them. In fact, it's the only one among those wonders that have stood the test of time and is still standing to date. Researchers have been fascinated with this ancient structure, and mainly because there's still many unanswered questions that Egyptologists and researchers can't seem to agree on. One of the most interesting conversations is that of the missing capstone. The last thing to be placed on the pyramid would have been that of the capstone. Interestingly, over the years some researchers have suggested there wasn't a capstone at all, and instead the pyramid would have had an empty space at the top. However, other researchers have dismissed these claims and said that no ruler would have left a job unfinished, and would have demanded that an impressive capstone sat at the top of the pyramid. Devoid of its original coating of white limestone blocks, the Great Pyramid also lacks its summit, which gave it approximately another 9 meters in height. Many people believe that the capstone of the Great Pyramid of Giza was made of gold, and it was somehow removed from the top of the pyramid in the distant past. But some have struggled to imagine someone removing a capstone made entirely out of gold from the top of the pyramid. Interestingly, one theory proposed by Spanish researcher Miguel Perez Sanchez indicates that the Great Pyramid wasn't left unfinished, and that a massive sphere was located on its surface. Perez Sanchez proposes that the sphere the ancient Egyptians placed at the top of the pyramid symbolizes the Eye of Horus, and had a diameter of 2,718 royal cubits of 2.7 meters. The sphere located on the pyramid was placed as a worship to the sun and Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. In addition of the sphere located on the top of the pyramid, analysis enabled researchers to find out the inclination angle 5,184 degrees, the platform that supported the sphere with a pi perimeter of royal cubits, and the height of the pyramidal vertex of 277,778 cubits. According to Perez Sanchez, the discovery of the original shape and dimensions of the Great Pyramid, its reconstruction and analysis revealed an architecture made of pure mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. Many have said that such an impressive structure must hold all kinds of secrets. There's no doubt that a lot of hard work and resilience went into building this giant structure, which some researchers have said was initially built as a tomb. Studies have shown that it must have taken roughly a decade or two to build this structure. Standing at 481 feet at the time, the pyramid would have held the title of the tallest structure any man has ever built. Although researchers and explorers cannot boldly say that they've uncovered all of the secrets of the Great Pyramid just yet, they have uncovered quite a lot of its secrets in the past couple of years. The Great Pyramid of Giza is estimated to have a volume of around 2,583,283 cubic meters. This data goes to show that this pyramid is a truly monumental structure. In order to build such a massive structure, millions of stones, each weighing an average of 3 tons, were moved to the site. Tons of granite and millions of limestone were also made use of to build this incredible piece of art. As huge as the Great Pyramid of Giza is, there are many who believe that the builders weren't actually able to complete its construction and that they may have had help. So what do you make of this interesting photograph taken above the pyramids? Do you think it shows unidentified flying objects? If not, what do you think the individual captured?